Hey guys, this is the first ever of Team UR's Halo lore videos, so if you want to see more of these videos, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Halo Infinite and community news. If you have a Halo clan and are struggling to recruit, then make sure you join our Discord recruiting hub in the description below. Let's jump into it. This is the story of the rise of the Unsc and the Interplanetary War. The idea of the Unsc was adopted in 2163 after UN forces clashed with two dissident political movements, known as the Kosloviks and the Freedom. The Freedom Movement was a fascist organization based off the Jovian moons, a group that received backing from some corporations operating in the Federal Republic of Germany on Earth. Their ideological opponents, the Kosloviks, formed a Marxist-Leninist group centered around the leadership of Vladimir Kozlov around the same time. Vladimir Kozlov formed the Kosloviks during this time, working with a family of miners in the colony of Oenotria on Mars. At this time, the mines were owned by corporations. Kozlov and his fellow miners began to rebel against these corporations, as they viewed them as being slaves to them. Under his leadership, they violently overtook 3 more mines. This led to them being deemed as terrorists by the United Nations. However, their ideas and beliefs began to catch on in places like the colony of Luna, some rural places on Mars, and on Earth. Conflicts between the Kosloviks and the Freedens began to rise, stirring from anti-Koslovik sentiment in the Jovian moons. They began to violently fight and attack each other. This weakened the Kosloviks as the Freedens attacked their base on Mars. However, the United Nations entered the conflict and thus began the Interplanetary War. The Jovian Moons campaign began due to Jovian secessionist attacks on United Nations colonial advisors on the moon Lo. This led to 3 months of fighting between United Nations and Jovian Freedian fighters. Though this was not the first armed conflict in our solar system, it was easily one of the bloodiest, and is generally considered to be the spark of increased friction and militarization that followed. The Jovian Moons campaign escalated tensions as Earth's national governments, many of which sponsored colonies within the system, began fighting proxy wars off the planet. As these proxy wars continued, tensions on Earth mounted, leading to a number of armed conflicts on Earth itself. Armed conflict ripped through South America as Koslovik, Freeden, and United Nations forces clashed over ideological differences. Violence was spread all throughout the battlefield. In the later stages of the wars, a part of the Freedians split apart and became the Neo-Freedens, and they were willing to negotiate with the United Nations. At the conclusion of the Rainforest Wars, certain dissenting groups arose with the Freeden movement that promoted reformist ideals. The Neo-Freedenists was formed in 2162, challenging their original founders, sparking the Battle of Delambre. As UN forces approached Delambre Crater, the Neo-Freedenists took up arms against the conservative side of the freedom movement. It is presumed that the Neo-Freedens won the brief engagement, as later they attempted to discuss a peace treaty with the UN forces. The UN forces later stormed the homeworld of the Koslovik rebels on Mars and sparked the Argyre Planetary campaign. The Argyre Planetary campaign marked the beginnings of the United Nations Space Command and the dedicated use of large forces of Marines in ground attacks. Predecessors to the orbital drop shock troopers were also known to have engaged in this conflict. A series of lightning strikes against Koslovik forces near the Argyre Planetary marks the first extraterrestrial deployment of Marines. The campaign was an unqualified success. As a result, future military doctrines would favor large contingents of Marines for ground assaults and shipboarding actions. In 2164, recruitment drives and propaganda tactics strongly bolstered the UN forces. The United Nations Space Command defeated Koslovik and Freeden forces on Earth, and they began a systematic and dedicated drive to crush the remnants of the various planets they hold throughout the system. In the August of 2167, a bombing raid killed Kozlov and his family on Mars. This move was crippling to the Kosloviks, and they eventually had to surrender. At the conclusion, Freeden and Koslovik forces were defeated in the face of a massive, unified, inspired, and very powerful UN military, now known as the United Nations Space Command. That is the end of this lore story, and I will continue the story of the United Nations Space Command and the second wave of insurrection that cultivated the Spartan 2 program in future videos. If you want to see that, hit that like button and subscribe, as it really helps me out. And if you want to join our clan or recruit for your clan, please hit that link in the description below to join our Discord. I'll see you in the next video. Bam53 out.